Good morning. How are y'all this morning?
Good. It's just like Tony the Tiger.
Great. Well, good. I'm happy to hear that. I'm Reverend C.C. Coltrane, and I want to welcome you. Sure, easy for you to say. I want to welcome you to Center for Spiritual Living Greater Dayton this morning. Thank you for being here with us on this beautiful sunny day when many people are obviously out working in their yards. But if this is your first time here, we especially welcome you and thank you for sharing your morning with us. Marge Russell will be giving our reading and invocation this morning, and our vigil holder is Jerry Blumgold. And Marge and Linda Smith will be offering our interfaith candle lighting, which reminds us that there is wisdom and truth in every religion and spiritual tradition everywhere, and that when we look across them all, we find much more commonality than we do difference. So the kids and teens are with Stephanie in the dirt today. Woohoo! Look at her, she is so ready to go.
It's official, I've got the dirt here on the floor here.
Oh, good. That's all right, we forgive you. So as the kids prepare to go out and plant seeds and plants and have a wonderful time, let's just bless them quickly. Let's just call to mind what we know to be true about these beautiful young people and about all life, that God is present right here and right now, shining in and as and through these beautiful kids. These kids who are so open to life and to life that they show us how to be that open. We bless them today. We bless all that they do today. We bless the fruits of their labors, knowing that those seeds and plants bear flowers and fruit that are beautiful, wonderful, and nourishing. Thank you, God. All is good, and so it is. Have a wonderful time, you guys.
Have fun. We love you.
Bye, Steph. We have lilies and all kinds of stuff to plant out in the garden this year. It'll be really fun. So now we get to hear a song by Kenny called Into the Light.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We light the first candle in honor of Christianity. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the greatest commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. We light the second candle in honor of Gnosticism. That which is below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below, to accomplish the miracle of the one thing. We light the third candle in honor of Taoism. When you succeed in connecting your energy with the divine realm through high awareness and the practice of undiscriminating virtue, the transmission of the ultimate subtle truths will follow. We light the fourth candle in honor of Buddhism. Good causes bring good effects. Bad causes bring bad effects. Your own cause brings your own effect. We light the fifth candle in honor of Hinduism. Now, as a person is like this or like that, according as they act and according as they behave, so will they be. A person of good acts will become good. A person of bad acts, bad. We become pure by pure deeds, bad by bad deeds. And whatever deed one does, that he will reap. We light the sixth candle in honor of Sufism. My place is placeless. My trace is traceless. Neither body nor soul. I belong to the beloved. Have seen the two worlds as one. And it is that one that I call to. And know first, last, inner, outer, only that breath, breathing the human being. And we light the final candle in honor of mystical Judaism. The secret to happiness of the average human being is not so much dependent on validation from an ever-changing society, but rather it is on one's own ability to create yesh man, the existence of nothingness, light from darkness and sweet from bitter. This kind of creation is boundless and encompasses all areas of human activity. Our reading today is from the law of mental equivalence. The law of mental equivalence means that everything that is consciously and subjectively embodied in our thinking tends to radiate an atmosphere, a vibration, a current of thought, an inward acceptance which automatically attracts to itself that which is like itself. The law of mental equivalence means that there shall be within the body of our thinking not only an acceptance of the good we desire, but an inward experience of the meaning of that good, a real sense and a real feeling that we now possess it. So let's take that thought into our hearts and the silence for a few moments. And in the beautiful words that we have heard this morning from all teachings, we've taken into our thinking and into our hearts such beauty, such creative energy, such goodness. And we allow ourselves to feel it, to know that it is a part of us. It is who we are. It is who we are today as a community as we come together. We come together in a sense of goodness and oneness and love for ourselves, for each other, and for this community and for the greater community. Knowing that this is the law of good, that it is forever creating according to its own nature. And it is that which guides us and directs us and goes before us and makes clear the way. And that is our truth this morning. And how wonderful, how glorious it is to accept that as truth. And so it is.
Let me have that candle lighting reading for a second. Something I wanted to refer to. Thank you. So did anybody watch the wedding, the royal wedding?
Yes.
Do you think the Windsors were ready for that great preacher? He was so wonderful, wasn't he? Actually, he's usually a lot fierier than that. I think he toned it down some, given that he was in St. George's Chapel. He was wonderful. He was giving a sermon to the world, I thought.
Yes, he was.
I thought he was really amazing.
He woke the queen up.
He did wake the queen up. He did wake the queen up. I thought it was great. And I don't know that they've ever had a gospel choir sing at a royal wedding either. Things are evolving very nicely.
Benny King, Stand By Me at St. George's.
I know, isn't that cool? It's great. So as you could kind of tell from today's readings, we're continuing our exploration of spiritual laws and how they apply in our lives. We're learning how to create, as the Jewish mystics say, yesh ma'in, existence from nothingness, light from darkness, and sweet from bitter. I love that. And that is how it says when we figure out how to do that, we're happy. I agree. Last week we talked about the power of our intention and embodying our intention, allowing our intention to transform us into, so that we become what we're looking for. And this week I want to talk about what our founder, Ernest Holmes, called mental equivalence, the clear mental, emotional picture of what it is that we're wanting to experience in life. Working with these mental equivalents, I think, is the way that we become, we embody what we want to see and experience. Ernest Holmes was deeply influenced by a lot of people and a lot of scripture from across the world and across the ages. But one of the people who influenced him a lot was Thomas Troward, who was a British judge who in turn lived in India during the Raj and was very much influenced by Hinduism. And Troward was a judge, so forgive the language. You know how they go on. He wrote, "The object of our desire is necessarily first conceived by us as bearing some relation to existing circumstances, which may or may not appear favorable to it." In other words, we look at our circumstances and wonder how we get from here to there, to where we want to be. Troward believed that what we have to do is remove that implicit element of contingency that's there. The idea that circumstances are not favorable to what it is that we want. We must endeavor, he said, to impress upon our minds the idea of that which we desire quite apart from any conditions. Quite apart from any conditions. Well, how do you do that? How do you do that? Troward said that if you stop and think that everything in form, everything you see, first consisted in an idea. There was first a mental prototype of this thing, whatever it is, microphone, podium, goblet, table. It was first a mental image of it. And he said, we add to that and create what he called a spiritual prototype. He said, conceive the existence in the spiritual world of a spiritual prototype of every existing thing. If we look upon the spiritual prototype as the essential being of the thing, and the material form as the growth of this prototype into outward expression, then we shall see that the initial step to the production of any external fact must be the creation of its spiritual prototype. Like this cup here, you know, the essence of the cup is the space in it, but the person who is creating this also saw a different kind of essence. It has a particular shape and a particular color, and thoughtfully there's this unglazed part so that when you pick it up you don't accidentally let it slip out of your hand and drop it. And it's got some grace and character to it, and that whole thing is the spiritual prototype that gave rise to the creation of this particular drinking vessel. And Ernest Holmes called it a mental equivalent because it's the equivalent in our minds of the thing we wish to have or experience. I prefer to call it the emotional equivalent because it's not just a bare idea. It has life and color and meaning and feeling all mixed in with the bare idea. For example, you know, if somebody lives in a little teeny apartment and what they want is more higher ceilings and more light and more airiness and room, the idea is to begin to create a picture in the mind of the home they wish to experience. And this may be the highest use of imagination, to really envision in detail the experience that we want to have, the good that we want to see. So in our example, we can imagine the accessories and the furnishings and the windows and the books and all that kind of stuff. And then we have to imagine that we are in there, that we are walking around in this home, that we are enjoying the airiness and the light and the space, and we really feel at home in this emotional equivalent. You can feel the peace and feel the joy. So we build a mental picture, but then we have to build a feeling picture that's every bit as detailed and complete as the mental picture. Today's reading says that we build up an inward experience of the meaning of that good, a sense, a real sense and a real feeling that we now possess it. As Jesus said, you know, such things that you desire, believe that you have them, and they shall come to you. Or I can't quite remember the biblical phrase, but the important part is that believe that you have them now, right? Not sometime in the future. So we have to get our feelings in the place where we're there already. And then what happens? Then we have those inevitable thoughts like, that place probably doesn't even exist. I'll never find that. I can't afford that. Or whatever other negativity pops into our head. Those are the circumstances Troward was talking about. We look at the circumstances and say, these are my circumstances, therefore I can't get there. I can't have that. I can't experience that. Well, he says, we have to conceive of this thing quite apart from the circumstances. The Buddhists would say, so the negative thought comes up in your mind, just let it flow on out the other side. Don't become attached to it. Realize it is simply another thought. And go back to the thought you were having before about your comfortable home and your feeling of safety and harmony there and your mental picture of making coffee in your kitchen or whatever it is. You don't have to fight the negative thoughts. You don't have to fix them. You just have to let them come and go. If we spend some time each day with our spiritual prototype, our emotional equivalent, adding color and detail to it till it becomes real to us, then we have this inner equivalent of the experience we want to have. We have to consciously add in the color and the meaning and the feeling and all of that. We get that complete experiential picture. And that is a mental equivalent. That is a spiritual prototype. And sometimes that's really easy. Are any of you good daydreamers? I am. I love to daydream. Sometimes it's really easy and sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's not because we've pushed our minds so far that every negative thought we could ever have just keeps rising and rising and rising. Sometimes it's like a rubber band that you stretch a little too far and it kind of snaps and doesn't work anymore. We can't feel or believe our way into it because it's so far removed from where we are. And Ernest Holmes recognized that as he was thinking this through, and he said, the range of our possibilities at the present time does not extend far beyond the range of our present concepts. As we bring ourselves to a greater vision, we can then induce a still greater concept and thereby demonstrate more in our experience. In this way, there is a continuous growth and unfoldment taking place. So little by little, we can unfold our consciousness through the acquisition of greater and still greater mental equivalents, until we are at last made free. In other words, we start where we are, and we don't go way past our vision. We go right to the edge of it, and then push out a little, and then when that becomes comfortable, we walk to the edge of that vision and push out a little more, and slowly increase our capacity to inhabit mentally and emotionally the good we're seeking. If somebody's making minimum wage, they can't all of a sudden envision themselves making $25 an hour. They might be able to stretch their mind to $12 and then $15 and then $20 and then $25 and so on. And see, I don't think when he said we're made free, Holmes meant that we could say a prayer and have $1 million, or do some affirmations one day and move into our dream house a week later. What he did say was little by little we begin to understand really how we can change our experience by changing the way we think and believe. And once we get that, we are free. We are free. And the really interesting thing is that as soon as we get comfortable in our mental and emotional equivalent, this inner experience, our outside lives begin to change. I don't know how that works. Holmes called it the law. It may be, as we've talked about before, that we see what we're looking for, which we've talked about as well. brain science now is sort of explaining this law in all sorts of new ways, one of which is we see what we look for. And we see an opportunity and we take it because that's where we belong now. We are more in our own consciousness. I don't know how it works, I just know it works because it's worked and worked and worked for me in my own life. When I first got out of law school, and during law school and when I first got out, I worked for this guy who's filthy rich. He has money up the wazoo and he's so afraid that there's not going to be enough money that I can hardly believe it. He's so limited by his fear that somehow his millions of dollars will run out on him. And he keeps lining his pockets through every way he possibly can, including hiring people, paying them as associates, but billing them as partners. And that's what he was doing to me. You know, I was paying full overhead and at a much reduced hourly rate because he was taking a cut from everything that I brought in. And at first I resented it, and then I said, you know, I was in Science of Mind, and I said, I have to do this myself. I have to create this new reality for myself, and that means the first thing I have to do is come to believe I'm worth more. Come to believe I'm worth more. So I started working on that, and I created a mental and feeling picture of what it would look like to be paid what I was worth. Or as far as I could go at that time, this spiritual prototype, this emotional equivalent. So I got ready to have this conversation with him about salary, and a really interesting thing happened. It was the end of the year, and we got our recaps on overhead, and I realized that somehow my office had been, we paid by square footage of office space. My office had been calculated as about 18% bigger than it was. So I'd overpaid him by $12,000.
Wow.
So instantly I had a $1,000 a month raise for that first year when I said, wait a minute, you owe me now. It was quite amazing. And I moved straight into that, I'll tell you, straight into that mental equivalent. Okay, here I am now. But I didn't stop there. And other really good things happened to me financially. Now, I am aware I started from a very privileged place. I am white, and I was born into an opportunity to be well educated. I get that. But I believe that every one of us can improve our lives by creating this inward mental and emotional experience and then living into it. It's how we embody change. We let it become who we are on the inside, and then it shows up on the outside. It's how we embody step by step our own expansion. And we're all expanding all the time, right? I'll tell you what, for most of my life, I've lived in my headquarters, never gone into the main part of the building, into the factory, so to speak. And so the hard thing for me was, and the important expansion for me has been in the area of emotions and feelings in my relationship to spirit and my relationship to you and my relationship to the rest of humanity. It was far easier for me to feel and think and make a mental equivalent about things than it was about loving myself, being totally comfortable in my own skin. That took a lot longer. It took more work. It took more constant abiding in this mental and emotional equivalent of what it was to be enough and what it was to feel good in my own body and in my own skin and in my own personality. It took longer than the pay raise, and it was way more important. Way more important. So I think wherever we are is where we start. And we choose something in our life that we want to make better. And we work at making not only the inner picture of that, but the feeling and meaning and living in it and allowing it to be that bigger and finer state. We flesh it out and color it up and imbue it with meaning for ourselves. And we arrive at this sense that we possess it already. And when it feels comfortable, when we feel ourselves looking around or when we feel ourselves living in it, look around and see what happens in our outer world. Because we begin to see new things. We begin to arrive at new places. We begin to achieve new things. We wake up one day and say, I haven't picked on myself all day. I've been comfortable in my own skin all day. I haven't had a negative thought about another person all day. Wow. It's a miracle. And I remember the first day I actually woke up to the fact that I felt comfortable in my own skin for days at a time. It was a miracle. Never happened to me before. And we don't let those little nagging thoughts convince us that it's not possible, that it's not for us, that it's for somebody else, but not doable by us. We just let them float on by. We stay in this mental and emotional prototype, this mental bigger and better, until it feels real to us. And of course, the foundation of all of this is remembering who we are and what we're part of. There's a great little piece in the earliest version of Ernest Holmes' book, The Science of Mind, a 1926 version. He says, there is a point in realization where the individual merges with the universe, but not to the loss of their individuality, where a sense of the oneness of all life so enters their being that there's no sense of otherness. It is here that the mentality performs seeming miracles, because there is nothing to hinder the whole from coming through. We can only do this by providing the great mental equivalence of life, by dwelling and meditating on the immensity of life, and yet as vast, as immense, as limitless as it is, the whole of it is brought to the point of our own consciousness. So, we start with this mental equivalent of the universe and then realize that it all comes down in us to our own consciousness, our own hearts, our own souls, this own place where life wells up in us. And so to be healed of our thoughts of lack, our I'm not enough, our limitations, we have to take the time to affirm that, not only in words, but in our spiritual prototypes. We have to be able to fill the prototype with that feeling of the whole coming to a point inside of us, and then letting that color and vibrancy fill our emotional equivalent. And if we do that, and just let the negative go by, pay attention to what it is that we're building in our minds and our hearts, and let the other stuff float on out, our whole attitude towards life shifts. As Holmes said, if we spent half the time affirming that we spend complaining, finding fault, fussing, being sad and sorry for ourselves, we would soon be where we want to be. To be healed of our thoughts, this is what we have to do, I think. We have to embody that good through this process of emotional equivalence, whether it's in our individual lives or the world, whether it's in our bank accounts or humanity, whether it's in our relationships or life itself. And so he came up with this great affirmation, Holmes did, of what he called these great mental equivalents of life. He said, infinite indwelling spirit within me, Almighty God within me, perfect peace within me, complete satisfaction within me, real substance within me, that which is the truth within me. We dwell on those things and feel them coming down to that point in our own consciousness, and practice throwing ourselves loose of the moorings, throwing ourselves into that limitless sea of the universe, cutting ourselves away from our habituated fear and thought, and fear and doubt, and I can't. We practice floating on the ocean of divine love and divine givingness, and allowing our individual good to find its way to us. Beginning with this mental and emotional picture that we create, using the gifts we all already have: imagination, feeling, will, and vision. And this picture we create then becomes the very mold of our lives. So I invite you this week to simply play around with that. See what kind of thing is wanting to be built in your own mind. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What is it like to live in the middle of that? And try and do that once a day or more and see what happens to you. Just see what happens to you. I'd love to hear about it. But right now, let's just come together in consciousness and spend a moment remembering those great mental equivalents of life. God is, I am. God is, I am. God is that power and presence that created all that exists and is continuing to create newly, pushing time and space out in front of itself, because God too is always expanding. Life too is always expanding. Good is always expanding. And yet, despite its existence at the furthest reaches of the universe, all of that comes to a point in each one of us, an individualization in our own consciousness, in our own hearts. It is right here, as close as our jugular vein, as Rumi said. This infinite love, divine givingness, this all that is here and now within each one of us. And so as we contemplate that truth, we feel that peace within. We feel that ease moving through our bodies. We feel that joy in our hearts. It is the very joy of life, regardless of what the form looks like. There is always this joy at our very deepest center. It is the joy that knows our oneness with all that is. It is the joy that knows that we are God in expression. It is the joy that knows that we are free to use these God-given gifts of imagination and will and vision and feeling and love to create a better world, to create a better life, to create a better way of being. And so what I know for each one of us is that we find ourselves today a little bit more free to do just that. A little bit less inclined to hold on to those old habits of thinking that say, I'm not enough. How can I do that? And to embrace the great mental equivalence of life, the vastness of it, the power of it, the infinity of it, the immortality of it, the joy of it. To let those great mental equivalents take a deeper root within our own minds. And from there we build. From there we grow, from there we expand, from there we reach outward into the heavens, to the stars and beyond. And we allow life to express itself by means of us, bringing joy wherever we are, increasing the light wherever we are, making clear the next step. As we shine, we make clear our own next steps. And as we shine for each other, we help each other find their next steps. And so it grows, and so it grows. Knowing this is the truth, I simply give great thanks. I give great thanks for everyone who is part of this community. I give great thanks for the new lives, the increased lives, the expansion that each one of us is creating, and for this world that is part of our vision, this world that works for all life, that we are walking toward. I give thanks for this very moment. And out of gratitude, from deep within my own gratitude, I simply let it all go, knowing it's already done. And together we say, and so it is.
We are all just drops within a stream, flowing towards an ocean of light. We may forget where we come from. We may forget where we're going to. I might not see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. And just a seed, a blessed seed with eternity unfolding me. And I pray that as I go, I will reveal the love that illuminates my soul. When I remember where I come from, when I remember where I'm going to, then I will see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite
Amen. We now have an opportunity to put legs under the emotional equivalent of loving community. That is what CSL, what Center for Spiritual Living Greater Dayton is all about. We come together to support each other as we grow in consciousness and in love and in life itself. And together we make a difference. Make a difference in the world. So be generous with us today in your support, and let's affirm together. I know the activity of abundance in my life.
I know the activity of abundance in my life.
And in this center,
And in this center,
I give and receive generously
I give and receive generously
from this everlasting flow of good.
from this everlasting flow of good.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Good song. I like that. So I want to talk for a minute with you about our Leadership Council. This is the highest governing body in the center, and they are an amazing group of people. We actually do the center business from a place of prayerfulness and joy, and our meetings are usually full of dirty jokes and laughter. We actually really have a good time. Actually, they're pretty clean jokes, but they're a little on the bluish side sometimes. But if you'd like to take part in giving form and color to the center's vision, please consider leadership at this level. We have some requirements, of course, but the requirements are not onerous, and neither is the work. It's actually a whole lot of fun. And so if you're interested in playing with us on the leadership corps, please talk with me. I'll be here Tuesday, Wednesday this week, or you can shoot me an email. We would love to have your vision and your wisdom and your love with us on the Leadership Council. It's a lot of fun and very important. You are also invited, please, to be part of our new community photo directory. If you come and have your picture taken, take 30 minutes out of your Friday or Saturday, Thursday or Friday, you get a free 8x10, and you'll be part of the directory that'll help us get to know each other better. The photo sessions are May 31st and June 1st from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. and there's a bunch of slots available over there. Sign-up sheets are on the bulletin board of the Welcome Center. You can even bring other family members to be part of your 8x10. They won't be in our directory. You'll get an original, individual photo for that, but you can have your 8x10 be of a group. You can bring your critters if you want to. We're planning on bringing our 2 little puppies because they're our family. There are guidelines for pets over at the Welcome Center, like, give them a walk beforehand so they don't go absolutely crazy. But we would love to see your smiling doggies in your photos as well. And if you absolutely can't make it on one of those 2 days, contact Clara and she'll make alternative arrangements for you. Please sign up today for an open photo slot just right over there on the bulletin board. And Denise is here somewhere. I saw her a minute ago. Where'd she go? Oh, I'll keep talking. Please check your bulletin inserts for a couple of events that are coming up and mark your calendar for June 3rd. It's our spring picnic and we have a terrific young lady from Columbus coming down that day to sing for us.
On the 3rd, yes.
Jessie Powers is her name. If you were at the retreat, you heard her. She's amazing. So June 3rd, don't miss it. And now it's time for Denise Klein and an announcement about Cooking with God.
Thank you. Ann Calkins is out of town, so it's just me. I wanted to give you a few updates. We have right now earned or raised $3,395. Yay! And so now we're just $1,605 from our goal of raising $5,000. So it's going extremely well. This coming Saturday, May 26th, we do have the Wildflowers, a Wooded Hike Lunch and Learn. This is hosted by Tom and Chris Cooper. It's going to be at the Sugar Creek Reserve, and we have 3 more tickets available. So keep this in mind today or throughout the week. You can purchase tickets throughout the week as well. And then the following Saturday, June 2nd, is a wonderful wine tasting hosted by Kelly and myself. And I know tickets are still available for that, so please keep us in mind. And today will be our last Sunday to sell tickets after the service, but tickets are available throughout the week. You just can call Clara with a credit card and order tickets, or you can come in person during office hours. And hosts will receive a list of their attendees with contact information sometime this week in the mail. I think that's all I have. Thank you, everybody.
I'm really looking forward to the wildflower hike. I know all the wildflowers in the Rocky Mountains, but none of the wildflowers here, so it'll be a real learning experience for me. So put on your shoes, come out in the mud, let's play. All right, I think that is everything, except I will say if you're new or newish and you'd like to join me after the service for Rock with the Rev, we'll be in the adult classroom probably by about 11:50. And I think, other than that, just remember that our practitioners are always available to pray with you after service if there's something that you are having a little bit of difficulty elevating your vision about. That's what they're here for, and this is their gift to you on Sunday. So thanks for being here. Thanks to the ushers and greeters. Thanks to the practitioners and the welcome team. Thank you to the Higher Mind Band, extraordinary musicians that they are. And thanks to all of you. Let's do our closing affirmation. Our closing song is I Release and I Let Go. Woo. So affirm after me. Right now I experience the good.
Right now I experience the good.
It is unfolding in my present and in my future.
It is unfolding in my present and my future.
I step forward,
I step forward,
knowing my good is always revealing itself.
knowing my good is always revealing itself.
I am grateful.
I am grateful.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Have a great week, everybody.